Thank you. Thank you very much, Steve. This is terrific. I'm delighted to be here. We've collaborated with Intel on so many different initiatives over the last several years, in fact, all the way up to a decade. And over the course of the next 10 years, we're going to see some pretty dramatic changes in our industry. I want to spend some time today talking to you about growth, where it's coming from, and the things that NVIDIA is focused on to help facilitate this growth and build technologies that can create some of this growth. I'm going to start out at 10,000 feet. If I'm lucky, I'm going to end up at about 999 feet, 9,999 feet, and all of this is going to be pretty new material. I created the presentation deck this weekend myself, so I just, this is unrehearsed, and you guys are hearing it for the first time, but I'm going to talk about the type of things that I'm really excited about and the things that NVIDIA is really excited about. What I've labeled the title of this presentation is Network Digital Media. Steve called it the digital home. Microsoft calls it the connected home. I think a lot of us are thinking about very similar things. I'm going to come at it with a slightly different perspective, but ultimately, we're seeing the same fundamental benefits for the end consumers. Before I get into talking about growth, let me talk about how we get here. I think with the exception of Steve, I think Steve actually saw the spreadsheet era. Steve's been with Intel 25 years. I think he's probably the only person who was selling components, Intel components at that time. But the rest of us really got into the industry in the late 80s and the early 90s. Fundamentally, the great wisdom that Intel had, and I think it's really, really important that you think about some of the fundamental technology infrastructure that was created that enabled this industry and enabled the personal computer to evolve so fast. At its foundation, the great wisdom is an open and standard architecture. In order to evolve quickly, develop technology, and bring those benefits to the marketplace as quickly as humanly possible, you need to have standards. At the end of my speech, I'm going to talk a little bit about PCI Express, one of the most important industry standards going forward, but certainly bus standards, API standards, instruction set standards, all of those standards really help facilitate the growth and made it possible for hundreds of companies, thousands of companies around the world to help participate in the creation of the PC industry. Now, certainly from our perspective, we applied Moore's Law to create technologies that fits around these standards and quickly bringing more and more capabilities to the marketplace at a very rapid churn. The thing that you'll notice is every 5 years or so, something pretty fundamental happens to the industry. And the reason for that is every 5 years, about 10x more capability is created. 10x. You know, I really admire Vince earlier, and quite frankly, you know, it's one of the few presentations that I've heard in a long time that I was actually really moved by. But I have to tell you, 215 kilometers per hour, that's nothing. That is nothing from our perspective. When we're talking about 10x every 5 years, that's like the next time he shows up on that, you know, the difference between that world champion and the Olympics. All of a sudden, the guy was going 2,000 kilometers per hour, and he was just a show-up. And so I think clearly the technology moves very, very, very rapidly. And what makes this industry so exciting is it's hard to predict where the next 5 years is going to go. All you know is this. You have to stay focused, you have to stay flexible, and you have to continue to innovate. But the thing that's really amazing is every 5 years or so, we're going to see some pretty dramatic change. It's been about 5 years. When our company first started in the early 1990s, it was all about Windows, it was all about multimedia, it was all about the computing experience. And our vision was quite simply to build technology to transform the computing experience. Our perspective and our hunch at the time was that information processing, data processing, was going to become less central to the growth of the computer industry. What's going to be more central to the growth of the computer industry is figuring out a way to bring that technology to a much, much larger audience. People who don't have to process information, people who don't have to crunch numbers, and people who, frankly, don't care to. So the computing experience and building technology to facilitate a great computing experience, we call it transforming the computing experience, was NVIDIA's focus. That focus has really paid out well for us and has really driven our growth. But the important thing to realize is that each and every single time that we grew, we reached out to a larger base of consumers. It wasn't corporate IT departments. Their profitability and return on invested capital, efficiency, productivity, whatever you call it, is all about investing in technology quickly. Don't ever let technology be the critical path to your profits. And so corporate America has been very deeply invested in information technology for some time. However, consumers, that's a whole different story. Their expectations are a lot different. And enjoying the computing experience and doing things that touch their lives was much more central to their needs. Our growth has something to do with the multimedia era. And in fact, Moore's Law has really helped our growth. If you take a look at the first application I demonstrated when we first started the company, this was 1994. This is actually a virtual fighter running on MV1 for any of you who've followed NVIDIA's history throughout the years. It's about 5,000 polygons in this frame. It's all rendered with 16-bit per pixel, 16 bits per component, and the resolution is about 640 by 480. We were just absolutely delighted that Virtual Fighter could be texture mapped. You could actually render polygons at 30 frames per second. And we felt that was the beginning of something great. And in fact, it was. But the technology was simple. It was point sample texture mapping. Point sample texture mapping implies no filtering. Point sample texture mapping implies just taking a decal and pasting it, if you will, directly onto a three-dimensional geometry. It was about 1 million transistors. My recollection is it's 0.5 micron technology, and it ran at a whopping 50 megahertz. 10 years or so later, this is 5 million polygons in a frame. Everything is rendered in 32-bit color. In fact, many of the components are now rendered in floating point color, and we're going to go into much more of that type of capabilities very shortly. The resolution is about 1600 by 12, and it's multi-sampled anti-aliasing. We invented a technology called programmable shaders, and in fact, the capability of the device certainly demonstrates it, but the complexity of the device also followed. Where did you come from? I'm as surprised as all of you guys. So anyways, now I'm distraught. I don't know where I am. 200 million transistors and 500 megahertz. That represents the state of the art today. We're going to continue to innovate. Let me give you a sense of where we're going to go. Over the course of the next 10 years, it's not unreasonable to expect that you'll have several hundred billion polygons per second. Okay, several hundred billion polygons per second. We're going to render every single frame with so many polygons you won't see pixels. We'll render certainly several hundred billion pixels per second. We're going to need that fill rate for a lot of very complex type of rendering. But just to put this in perspective, there's not a single animated movie that you see today that we can't render in real time in 2014. Absolutely remarkable stuff. Of course, animated movies are going to become much, much more realistic. But just to put it in perspective, there's nothing you shouldn't be able to render in real time by that point. The floating point capability of these devices, call it approximately 10 teraflops. Put that in perspective. The fastest computer ever built by mankind is a computer called the Earth Simulator in Japan. It is 3 tennis courts, one stacked up on top of each other. Hard to say how many megawatts is necessary to power the Earth Simulator. The MTBF, mean time between failure, is probably a couple of days. But the Earth Simulator, as the name implies, was created to simulate the type of things that we can't possibly do in consumer computing today. Simulate the effects of things like weather. The Earth Simulator has something along the lines of about 30 teraflops. Okay, so we're going to have 1/3 of an Earth Simulator on a chip in 10 years. Now, 10 years comes and goes awfully fast. I can practically still remember the first sandwich I had at NVIDIA. That was 10 years ago. It was a steak sandwich, by the way. And so over the next 10 years, we're going to see a tremendous amount of innovation still in our industry. The innovation has really driven NVIDIA to where we are today, and of course, many of you are partners and customers of ours, and I'm very grateful for everything that you've done for us and supporting us. But we're about a $2 billion technology company today. We have 2,000 employees worldwide. Over the course of the last 3 years, we invested $1 billion in R&D. For a company of our size, focused strictly on one thing. R&D, not on manufacturing, not on process technology, not on packaging technology, but R&D in the area of 3D graphics, in the area of digital media processing, in the area of networking. We've invested $1 billion. We are just a raw engineering and marketing machine created for the strict purpose of creating technologies and creating new markets. Our brands, the products that the way we bring our technology to market is through our brands. We have several brands that I'll talk through very, very quickly, and then I'm going to talk about where our next phase of growth is going to come from. The desktop GeForce brand, the NForce brand, which is really focused on networking and storage processing. We call it internally NForce MCPs, media and communication processors. Media, disk drives, solid-state media, communications, networking, et cetera, processing. Really believe that this is an important area for NVIDIA to focus on. The mobile marketplace, incredibly important, because quite frankly, we want to be able to take our technology with us. Technology is going to be invisible, and it ought to be everywhere. And the way to do that is continue to invest in networking technology, low-power technology. Workstations. NVIDIA fundamentally is a content-driven company. We are a content-driven industry. And I wanted to make sure that our company is able to serve the needs of content creators around the world so that content is created on NVIDIA's GPUs and the GPU architectures we invent, as well as played back best on the GeForce GPUs that we market. GoForce is our new product line, targeted specifically at bringing multimedia capabilities to the handheld market and digital media software, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a short while. Nope. Innovation is at the heart of our company. Innovation and leadership, creating new markets, that's something that I'm really, really proud of. You know, all of you, when you think about your companies and what your culture is, ours is really fundamentally surrounded by, built upon, leadership and innovation. We've built and sold 300 million processor this year. That's quite a few processors. That's one in every American home. We created a product line called a GPU, created a product category. Joe mentioned earlier about category companies. We built a product category called a GPU. And last year, we became the largest programmable DX9 GPU supplier in the world. We target, in each one of these platforms, areas where we could add a lot of value, whether it's 3D graphics capability or digital media processing. In the area of mobile, we targeted very specifically in the first couple of years areas that are associated with those kind of capabilities. And today we have some 80% of the high-end mobile marketplace. Professional workstation marketplace, about 73%. If you just focus on the high-end digital content creation, my guess is it's something along the lines of 90 to 100%. Media processors. We partnered with Microsoft a couple of years ago on an initiative called eHome, really about bringing digital media capability to the living room. Today, it's called Media Center Edition. We're in some 90, maybe more % of the world's media centers that are shipping today, fundamentally because of our investment in high definition and high fidelity digital video. I keep doing that. Innovation. Let me talk about innovation a little bit. In 1999, we invented a technology called the programmable shader. I think at this point, everybody is clear. It is probably the single most important innovation since the creation of the texture map. Texture mapping is really fundamental to 3D graphics today. It's basically, as I mentioned earlier, decaling and filtering as it applies to a 3D object. What we decided to do, and what we believe the next step needs to be, is to unleash the artistic capabilities of this platform, this GPU architecture, and put it all in the hands of content creators around the world. Instead of now applying a singular decal or image which is what texture mapping fundamentally is, we now apply a program of infinite capability onto each and every single pixel. And you can deliver, as a result, capabilities that you guys see in real life, whether it's subsurface scattering, basically notion of light entering into a semi-translucent material, bouncing around inside, and then comes out of the other side. The reason why your skin looks rich and alive and vibrant, whereas in a 3D graphics game, it looks just chalky and texture mapped, fundamentally is because light is going through, permeating through our skin, bouncing off the red blood cells, and then reflecting back. That translucency, if you will, associated with rendering of skin is created by subsurface scattering. Ocean waves, whether it's reflection Fresnel effects, where objects that are further away, when you see it through water, looks closer. Those effects, reflections, waves, all of those capabilities are possible because of programmable shading. Motion blur. We all see some amount of motion blur because of the difference in flicker rate that is in the environment as well as what we perceive. Flame, instead of little tiny billboard flames, we're now going to see three-dimensional flames with particle systems of smoke. High dynamic range glow. Your eyes, certainly my eyes do right now, see ultra bright. All right? And the reason for that is because our eyes have this amazing ability to discern a very, very large range of fidelity, far larger than 255 to 1, which is basically one color component in RGB, 32-bit color. Or ray tracing, reflections and shadows are going to be much, much more accurate as a result of this capability that's called programmable shading. Programmable shading and GPUs with programmable shaders will fundamentally change three-dimensional graphics forever. We're also excited about the innovation in marketplaces. We bring our technology and put it into the hands of the people that can fundamentally change the world. This is one of the ones that I'm most proud of. This year, working with the scientists at NASA, we've been able to put our 3D graphics technology into the scientists' hands so that as they navigate the rover, it takes panoramic pictures and reconstruct the surface so that every single stone and rock is now rendered in full fidelity. Obviously, Mars is quite a long ways away. It's kind of hard to navigate it with video. This is really a wonderful way of reconstructing, if you will, the virtual landscape so that you could see every little shadow and every single little hole as the light changes throughout the course of the day and navigate the rovers with a great deal of precision. All of this innovation, whether it's in technology innovation or bringing our technology to markets and helping create markets, has really fueled our growth. But this growth, I think, is pretty spectacular, but it's really just the beginning. Here I want to talk to you today about the next phase of growth. The next phase of growth, some people called convergence of PCs and CEs. Some people talked about it in terms of digital homes. But it's extremely clear what's fundamentally driving it. What's fundamentally driving it is proliferation of digital content. It is finally now, because of processing capability of Moore's Law, that we can think about digital media, think about media, whether it's photographs or videos or whatever it is, songs, all in the terms of digital technology. All of these technologies, all of these medias are now files to us. They're files like they're programs, they're files like they're data, and we know how to deal with files. When you think about digital media in terms of files, it is not too difficult to imagine what you could do with these files. Convergence is also driven, from my perspective, from another different, thought of it in another different way. Convergence of standards. Networking standards, TCP/IP, video standards, MPEG, and there's so many other standards that are going to be evolving. So whether it's the physical connection standards like DVI, or soft standards, or protocol standards, we're converging very rapidly on standards. Now, as soon as you do that, the technology created in the PC industry is applicable for the consumer electronics. Software technology created in the PC industry is applicable for the consumer electronics marketplace. And the devices that we build, because the files are interchangeable, are going to be connected. And when we connect it, these environments are going to be much more useful and much more rich. Now, the question is, why hasn't it happened until now? Why is now so important? Why is the next 5 years particularly exciting? And the fundamental reason is because the infrastructure is finally established. It is not unreasonable to expect that broadband connection is going to reach a larger and larger part of the U.S. marketplace. Now, the United States is conservative by definition, and we also have a lot more infrastructure built up over the years, and yet we're still going to see some 40 million broadband connections in the next several years. Who knows what 802.16 is going to do? It's going to unleash just broadband to everybody else who hasn't decided to be part of that survey. Networked U.S. homes. More and more of our households are going to be connected. Storage capacity. Joe was up here, and I wish I was just dying to see an extrapolation of how far disk storage is going to go over the next several years. But it's absolutely amazing. This is one of my favorite things in the world, storage. Storage is just one of the most enabling things in the world. And we're going to see a terabyte in the next several years. A terabyte, put that in perspective. That's 200 full-length DVDs in this clumsy compression technology called MPEG-2. And MPEG-4, that's 400. It's hundreds of thousands of songs. Is it hundreds of thousands or millions? It's every song that's ever been composed. It's got to be. I know it's every picture that I've ever seen. 1 terabyte. And you don't have to just buy one. That's just the one that comes with your PC. I know Joe would be delighted to hear that you could buy 2 or 3. But anyways, the important thing is this. The important thing is this. It is finally possible for us. It is finally possible for us to distribute and receive compelling content, to share it anywhere in the house, to store it anywhere in the house, and to display it with rich fidelity anywhere in the house. The fundamental infrastructure for this digital home, connected home, or what we call the network digital media era, is finally here. And the beautiful thing is that the content looks like it's also here. Whether it's downloadable movies from MovieNow, it's still rather clumsy because broadband still needs to continue to improve. Whether it's network games, which really requires broadband if you want to have an advantage or not have a disadvantage, or just looking for the latest previews of movies from Fandango. All of these different sources of media certainly benefits from broadband. It's here because of broadband, and it really enriches the experience of broadband and digital media. And so I think that finally, we've reached the point where the ability to enable this vision and the desire to have this vision, the ability, because of the infrastructure, and the desire as a result of all the various content that's available to us, is finally here. And over the course of the next several years, we're going to have to start building technology that puts it all together, that makes the experience possible, media processing, that seamlessly connects it all together, whether it's wired or wireless, networking technology, and digital media software technology that brings it all together. Now, the type of experiences that you're going to see in an environment like this is pretty amazing if you just keep thinking about it. You could see the movies from any room. You could hear songs from any room. Video over IP. V over IP is going to stand for video over IP in 10 years. It won't be voice. The video phone, you could make VHS quality, near DVD quality video phone calls from anywhere around your house. A little tiny webcam sitting on a TV or a PC. It's going to enable you to call anybody you want, and AIM is going to go to a new level. Voice over IP is going to go to a brand new level. And so the ability to virtually store all of our lives in any storage device in the house, the ability to be able to share and play it back in a rich environment anywhere in the house, and to be able to do the type of things that we're imagining today, whether it's video over IP, video telephony, or just high-def DVDs, recording and streaming at the same time, that particular environment is possible in the next 5 years. I am certain 5 years from now, when we stand up here and talk about our industry, that is going to be what we're talking about. Now, it is crystal clear also that the channels and resellers, the value-added resellers, is going to make this happen sooner and better than larger global OEMs. And the reason for that is because you are closer to their homes. It is going to require some amount of hand-holding at first. It's going to require somebody explaining the vision and the benefits of having this type of an environment in your house. Here at NVIDIA, we're focused on 3 fundamental technologies that we believe are critical in this particular environment. The GPU for graphics, as well as digital media processing. The MCP, media and communications processing, the network technology, the security technology, the wireless technology, the storage technologies. All of that we call the MCP. And digital media software, whether it's rich codecs for compressing and decompressing, for streaming, for sharing, for virtually accessing any of these digital media stored anywhere around the house. That capability is really complicated, and software has to play a very large role in that. These are the 3 areas that we're investing. And we believe that these 3 areas of technology are going to transform the 3 major markets as they all go digital. And it's not completely, here I am talking to you guys, and this is nearly foregone conclusion. It's nearly foregone conclusion. The PC and the fact that we can display digital media in a networked environment is foregone conclusion. Now, actually delivering on the promise of that is hard. But the vision is foregone conclusion. The fact that the consumer electronics industry will be transformed in a fundamental way, and that it's going to open that marketplace up to us. The computing technologies, the digital technology companies, is foregone conclusion. Now the question is how? And certainly cell phones. This is going to be the era of the multimedia cell phone. The type of things that we can do, I think the statistics already show that more people buy cell phones with digital camera capabilities than there are sold digital cameras. In another year or 2, more people are going to buy digital camcorders in the form of a cell phone than there are going to be sold digital camcorders. It is possible, as you know, to have a memory stick with a gigabyte of memory in it. A gigabyte of memory will store a lot of videos. H.264, AVC, all of those codecs are going to make it possible for us to record hours and hours and hours of high-fidelity videos in our cell phones so that we can capture our experience wherever we happen to be or play a few games. So all of these 3 different environments, large industries, they're large industries to me. But the important thing is when I say that, what you should hear is they're large industries to you. There's not a single consumer electronics company that knows how to hook up a consumer electronics device to a PC. I'm certain of that. I am certain of that. That's an opportunity for you guys. That's an opportunity for me. So these industries are going to get rather large. I think we all need to expand our scope, and we all need to expand our vision so that we can participate in one of the most important growth areas that we've seen, certainly since the founding of NVIDIA. Now, closer to home, we believe that the single most important device for digital media processing is going to be the GPU. The GPU already does a lot more than you know, and the GPU is going to do a ton more soon. The GPU does programmable shading that we already talked about, which is 3D graphics. The GPU also is one of the most accessible, high-definition processor in the world today. If you want to see the most beautiful, high-definition video, you get a GeForce and a media center and project it on a high-def TV. Absolutely remarkable fidelity. All in 720p or 1080i if you like. All high-def. High-definition video processing. Now today it's about display and processing. Tomorrow it's going to be about encoding. It's going to be about streaming, multiple streams. You could be recording 1, playing another, recording 2, playing 4. Whatever. Really virtualizing the capability into the entire family environment. And image processing. Image processing in the context of making pictures higher fidelity is going to be those capabilities that you can find on a GPU today. So that you can enhance the color temperature, so that you could, whatever, improve the contrast if you like, just to make that photograph look better than it necessarily deserved to be. And of course, PCI Express, the invention from Intel and our collaboration with Intel to enable this new platform of buses. As soon as we bring this new capability to the PC, we're going to unleash a lot more bandwidth. And bandwidth is pretty fundamental to digital media. It's all about bandwidth. And in the future, as we want to do multiple things to multiple displays, and many of you have probably already heard about ultra-wideband, the goal is, of course, that you could display video and images anywhere around the house off of the same device or multiple devices. So all of a sudden, from networking technology to ultra-wideband technology, all of our wires are gone. The computing capability of these PCs are going to be virtualized. We're going to be able to use it anywhere in the house and anywhere in the environment. Pretty powerful vision, pretty powerful capabilities, but we need to have a great deal of bandwidth, and that's what PCI Express does for us. And of course, we still need great content. This is going to be a great year for GPUs, frankly. And the reason for that is because PCI Express. The reason for that is because of a brand new programmable shader API called Shader Model 3.0. The reason of it, of course, has a lot to do with the fact that NVIDIA is on the verge of announcing a whole new family of GPUs, internally codenamed NV4X. And of course, great content. We've been waiting a very long time for the next level of content. A very, very long time. Doom 3 will be released this year for sure. So many other games that really capitalize on the capabilities of state-of-the-art GPUs and really capitalize on the capabilities of programmable shaders. So let me summarize very quickly. The conclusion is that the network digital media is a massive opportunity. It's a massive opportunity for me. It's a massive opportunity for you guys. And I think that it's really going to drive the PC industry. When we say that the PC and the CE are going to converge, we believe that's going to converge in technology, converge in standards, and they're going to converge because they're going to be connected. When we say they're connected, we have to remind ourselves that we no longer can just hook up multiple PCs as part of our jobs. We have to hook up multiple PCs, we have to hook up servers, we have to hook up consumer electronics devices. And then lastly, GPUs, networking, and digital media technologies are really core to this industry evolution, and we're excited to be investing in these three areas. Thank you very much.